Hi, my name is Mike. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Mike.
I've been through the process with the help of a Big Book Step Study sponsor, loving God, with the help of you people in these meetings. And I continue to work on 10, 11, and 12 to the best of my willingness. I guess just to qualify, I drank hard, right from the beginning. I was a scared person, and alcohol helped me to be comfortable with myself and around people, and I used it because I knew it worked, and a lot of years went by, and the jackpots and all, but they weren't that bad. But what happened was, the problem was that alcohol stopped working after a point. I could not drink enough to get the desired effect that I once, got. And I was stuck with me. I was stuck with, the scared person I was when I first started drinking. I was still that person. And I don't know, I tried mixing it with other stuff, to try to intensify the feelings, like try to be a chemist, and use like enough alcohol with enough of that, or this or that, or whatever, just to, I didn't have any other way to live. I didn't know how to live. My parents were good people. I had an older brother, good guy, dog, roof over their heads, food in the fridge. I didn't go out. I didn't go without things. But what I went out without was learning how to live. I just wasn't taught how to live, and I didn't have any mentors or somebody to really pay any attention to me in a sense and take me under their wing. And alcohol did that, it made everything okay. And then when it stopped working, many years later, I was stuck with me again, and I was all alone. I had pretty much ruined every relationship I ever had, and I had one friend left. He drank way more than I did, and and that's kind of the people I hung out with. I would drink to go out to drink, and my friend was court ordered to come here, and he had 7, 8 drunk drive-ins at the time. He's had a bunch more since then too, but never got this for some reason. But I wanted to quit drinking because, like I said, alcohol stopped working for me. What happened with me was I lost the middle of the drinking part, the fun part. I could remember drinking, and then I would come to somewhere. I could be driving, I could be at a bar, I could be just in my house, and the lamps tipped over. I got rug burns on my face or something, and I'd say I slipped on the ice or something the next day, but I don't really know what happened. But and my back would hurt or something. What happened? And so I missed the fun part of drinking, and I knew I had to stop. I'm an alcoholic. I'm not an idiot. I knew that alcohol, wasn't working for me. I knew I was waking up in places, driving, covering one eye, and just maybe in a dive bar, sitting in the back somewhere. How'd I get here? And when my friend was court ordered to come, and I had no more friends, and I knew I had to drink, so I had to quit drinking. And I came to AA because he was going. He needed a ride. He had lost his license, and I still had my license, and I knew it wasn't going to be much longer that I had my license the way I was going. and if I wasn't driving, I wouldn't have a job, and then I wouldn't have an apartment, and I knew I couldn't move back in with my parents. I mean, I just, so I kept coming here, and and people told me, just keep coming, your life will get better, and that's what I wanted, I had searched my whole life for like my life to get better. I didn't know how. My life did get better in a sense. I started coming, and I wasn't waking up with, rug burns and aching back and bruises, and and I just came to a lot of meetings, sometimes 3 meetings a day, because I was unemployable. I couldn't get a job. So I kept coming, and then I got a sponsor. I did all those 5 things that they suggest, and got active. I was setting up the meetings. I was making coffee. I was a greeter. I was a treasurer. GSR. I mean, I did all this stuff. I called my sponsor every day and all that stuff. But I'm like, what? Why don't I feel any better? I'm not drinking. And, I had a sponsor who said, well, maybe you're chemically imbalanced. I said, well, yeah, sure, I must be. Obviously, I must be chemically imbalanced, and I should get on the same medication he was on, he said. And geez, thanks, that's a great idea, and I get on, like Prozac and Wellbutrin and like some other meds too, like, I don't know, there's like one other one, I don't know what it was, but, and it numbed me a little bit, it just numbed me, I guess, enough so I wasn't feeling the emotional pain, but I wasn't really feeling a whole lot of anything. I went to counseling, I seeked outside help, like I went to counselors and psychotherapists, and I just couldn't get this, like why, everybody seemed happy, but for me, I wasn't happy. Eventually, after like 4 years, got here in like 2001, but about 4 years later, I said, if I'm going to be this miserable, I'm just going to go out and drink. I mean, there's got to be I had forgot, the whole part about missing, like alcohol stopped working, I guess. I never really learned, like, the true meaning of an alcoholic. I didn't know, like, I thought maybe I went through a bad time in my life, and maybe it'll be better this time, And I went out after 4 years, and as soon as I started, I knew I was in big trouble, because the same thing, alcohol wasn't working, and I needed it to mix it with other things, and those other things were really put me in places I shouldn't have been. I was, driving through the ghettos at like 2 a.m, hanging with people I shouldn't have been hanging with. It got bad fast, But I ended up back in AA after like about a year or so, year and a half, and like my family did like an intervention and said, you got to get help, you got to do something. 'Cause I was really going crazy at that point. I was like hearing voices. I was like really paranoid. I was like in so much debt, like crazy. Like I had like garbage bags full of my bills. I would just throw them away, My house was like getting foreclosed on. But I came back to AA again, and the same thing. I felt pretty good, getting sobering up again, and I stopped hearing voices. I don't know, the paranoia. I don't know if people really were after me, but if they were, they stopped. They stopped coming after me. I don't know. Part of me still thinks there were people after me, but so I don't know. But that all stopped once I stopped that behavior. And here I am again, I'm in AA, and, I did all those, joined a group, got a sponsor, and did all that stuff, still saying, what's going on here? Why am I not getting this? And one thing I just did, I just kept praying. I kept praying that, the right people would be put in my life. And I really looked at people with time as like such a, I looked up to people with like a lot of time. I thought that was like the key, to find a sponsor with time. They've been here so long, and they've done this thing so long, and they must know so much. They must have so much wisdom, and I'm sure that's true. But the people I found with time, I mean, they that they were nice guys, and they're doing the best they could, but they had never been through this book, and so they were giving me their theories on politics. They were giving me their theories on like abortion and what was going on in Egypt, and stuff that wasn't like helping me. I mean, I really needed the solution to my alcoholism, which I didn't even know what I needed, but I know now that I needed the solution to my alcoholism. And so after an alkathon, too, believe it or not, coming up, it was a Thanksgiving alkathon coming up, I went, and a guy followed me out of the meeting. It was in Warwick, Rhode Island. And guy followed me out of the meeting, and I'm like, why is he following me? I'm not, new. I, had a couple years back again, and, I'm good, why is he following me? And he had like a big book in his pocket. He carried the big book everywhere. And he just started, I don't know, like reading out of the big book to me, and I had read that book a bunch of times. I had bought the 5 CDs, and I've listened to this book in my car and on my MP3 player, and I had listened to like other big book workshops and stuff, but I didn't get it. I didn't understand it, So with this guy, I mean, I liked him, and he was telling me good things. He was speaking in a language I had never heard before, and I kind of clung on to him, and eventually we kind of went, sat in the car and kind of went, over a period of time, went through the first 3 steps. He had, showed me how he did his 4th step. He had saved it. He had it like in a backpack, and he's like, I'm not saving this as like a trophy, but I'm just saving this to show others how I did it. And eventually, I started writing. As it's laid out in this book. Went through the resentment. At first I said the 3rd step prayer, and and when I was writing and all this stuff, like I had no idea I had resentments, and they just kept coming out and coming out and coming out, like like multiple resentments for each person, and I was pretty much alone, right? I really didn't know anybody, and when they say like it was probably like everybody I had ever met I had a resentment to, that's probably true, and at first like I was like, no, I don't have any resentments. I go to church. I know how to forgive, but I didn't know how to forgive, and I didn't know what to do with my fear, and my sex conduct was awful. I mean, when I stopped drinking, I think my sex conduct got way worse because I was looking for that, something to like numb me, and I used, I thought just because, well, I'm not drinking, everything else is cool, but you know what, everything else isn't cool, I had no idea about, like those 7 questions about, where was I wrong? I never looked at that, I had no idea, like, anything was wrong. So basically, I got to this, I went, took me about 18 months to to do the writing. I'm not saying it should have taken that long, but I kept postponing it. Like I kept finding like something else to do rather than write. And like, I don't know, maybe the bathroom needs cleaning or something, or something like that, or maybe I should wash the dishes. I don't know, there was always something else. Like my mind would tell me, don't write, you got to do that other thing or whatever. And it took me about 18 months, and then I read it, I showed it to my sponsor in between while I was writing it, and I had to go back, and, the first part of the fourth step, I had to go back and like write, how it affected me, because I wasn't writing that, my self-esteem, personal relations, all that stuff I wasn't writing. I was writing, I was resentful, the cause, but I didn't write how, so I had to go back to it, and that was all right. I mean, I guess it was cool. I'm glad I did. And then when I finally finished, like the writing, we met up, like my sponsor came to my house, and a bunch of different times, spent a couple hours each time, read it, and then he left, and it was like, I was kind of like, the bird that got thrown out of the nest in a sense, and I was like kind of on my own, it seemed like, and got to 6, step 6, where, I spent an hour with God, and then it was like 6, and I was kind of like, on this, like, kind of like a spiritual high a little bit, because, I never completed anything in my life. I don't think I've ever read a book or did good in anything, and I finally had done this, and I learned how to forgive. I learned what to do with my fear, and learned how to conduct myself in a positive way. And my sponsor was cool. I mean, when I shared my fifth with them, he told me stuff about him, stuff that was like deep stuff that he did a lot of similar things, and then, like I said, I came to 6, and I was like, I don't know, was I now ready? Ready? Yeah, I guess I was ready. I had known the destruction this had caused in my life, and like I said, I was an alcoholic. I wasn't an idiot, but I knew that, this stuff wasn't working for me, and it hadn't worked in a long time. And I needed a new way to live. And I needed a program, and this is something to show me how to live. And so yeah, I was ready. I was ready, and it says when ready, we say something like this, and I said the prayer, my Creator, I'm now willing, and I also read other books too, like there's like non-AA books, I think Drop the Rock or something, about 6 and 7 too, I don't know. I listened to a bunch of speaker tapes on 6 and 7, like, and I asked, and then I, I was, like I said, I was on that spiritual high, and then I went to like Denny's or something and got an omelet one day, and like it was like a reward, I needed this reward because I finally, I did something, and that's what you do. You reward yourself when you do good things, like, I guess like a dog or whatever, And I did my omelet right after doing this 5th step, and on that spiritual high, and there was like a big piece of hair in it, like, and I was like, I was still kind of afraid, like I still had a lot of fear, like I just pulled the hair out and just ate it, like I know, I was too scared to like tell the waitress, take it back, make me another one. I was still full of fear, it just doesn't, the fear don't go away just because you do, like, it's it's like, it's going to the gym. You can't just go to the gym once and then, you know, get in shape. I mean, I've been going like for 10 years. You never know it. I mean, you never know it. If I took off my shirt, you'd be like, I thought you went to the gym, you know, but trust me, I mean, I do. But you never know it, but it's the same thing with this thing. I mean, it's a process. You got to keep working at it. You know, there are those dark days still, you know, where I feel like less than, I feel like, you know, a piece of, you know what, and then, you know, I have to like go back to like default mode and remember, you know what, Mike, you got a program, you know, go back to what you learned. And I heard this guy, I'm gonna steal something from this guy. I heard he talked about 6 and 7, goes to Norton and Attleboro. But he explained this pretty simply and pretty neat. He explained 6 and 7 like, all right, well in the fourth and fifth step, it's like cleaning the garage, he said. You know, you go through it, you organize it, you know. And 6 to 7 is like when you take the trash out to the curb, you know. And that's what I try to remember too when it comes to the stuff, you know. And you try to let God take it away, you know. God's like the garbage man here, and He takes all the stuff away. If I continue, you know, to stay in 10, 11, and 12. So I mean, like I said, there are those dark times still. I'm full of fear, you know, or I'm resentful, I'm angry, like somebody did me wrong, and I know they did, they know they did, and I'm like, but still, you know, I gotta go back to default mode, you know, and remember, I got a program and a new way of life that I have to live. If you know, I want to keep this thing, I want to, you know, every part of me, like, last night, Jill texted me, said, you coming tomorrow? And I was like, I mean, for about 5 minutes, I said, no way, I can't go, you know, like, I'm like too afraid, you know, I'm like, what am I going to say? You know, suppose I make a mistake, you know, suppose I say the wrong thing, you know, but then like, I went back to default mode, you know, this is why you did all this stuff. This is why, so you can, you know, you have a program, you can show up, you can try to share your experience, strength, and hope, and that's all I got. Thanks everybody.